Hi, Mark. I've been really looking forward to our chat today. Let me kick things off by saying that Mark is one of the most approachable and friendly people I know. He's a big fan of the Chatty Cafe. Thanks so much for such a great support. And I can really see your passion for mental health and open conversations. And you're definitely someone who can dive deep into those topics. You're also a fantastic ambassador for the Good to Talk badge. So thanks for wearing it with pride. It means a lot. So, Mark, would you mind telling us a bit more about yourself? And I would love to hear more about your book on motivation.
Well, firstly, thank you for that lovely introduction. I thoroughly love the way that you've set up the Chatty Cafe. I think it's a sort of passion project, and I think that's it's a great thing and to see it growing the way it has. I am, yes, Mark Terrell. I've written a book about motivation because the reason being, I think it's something that's often misunderstood, in that most people think that they can go and get motivation from somebody, but actually what we need to realize is that we all have motivation inside us. It's about tapping into that and understanding what makes us do things, because essentially that's what motivation is: motive to do something, or the reason to do something. And so that's what I do, and I encourage my clients to make sure that they are fulfilling their motivations in their business or in their career. And if they're not, then we work on ways to make sure that they can get more of those things fulfilled. And so to do that, we've got to identify what motivates people. So I've got a diagnostic that I use for that and other bits and pieces that I do. But essentially, as I wrote in my book, and I'll read you the first paragraph of my introduction, this book is all about energy. To manage our energy levels, we need to know what gives us energy and what saps our energy. Like fuel in the car, motivation is the energy we need to keep going, which needs to be topped up with the right type that's not going to evaporate overnight. Essentially, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think it's very important to talk about energy. And I've noticed with people, if we don't have energy, we struggle with the motivation.
Well, absolutely. I advocate managing energy rather than time, because a lot of people, when they're not getting things done, they think I need to manage my time better. But actually, there's only a certain amount of time, but there is more energy to be created if you know how to. So there's lots of ways to create more energy. Yeah, motivation is one, but also making sure that you're looking after yourself, getting the sleep you need, and you're eating the right things. And when you are doing those and taking care and being conscious about those things, you're looking after your energy. And when your energy is high, you're more productive, you enjoy what you're doing, and ultimately you don't get those slumps at the end of the day where you've worked throughout the day really hard and then you slump and are good for nothing in the evenings. That's not really good for you, or actually good for anybody that you spend time with. So if you can manage your energy, make sure it's high and not artificially high. It's there because you've got good energy and it's maintained. That's the key to productivity and performance.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So I have a couple of questions written down. So let me ask you. So in your book, you talk about being a reluctant leader. How do you think reluctance in leadership impacts one's mental well-being, and what strategies can leaders use to manage that?
That's a great question. If I was going to give you a question to ask me, I would have probably asked that, suggested that, because it's very much linked to my own story. I got to a position in my retail business where I was spending most of my time managing people. Now, I was okay at it. I had the sort of skills to do it, but ultimately it wasn't something that lit me up and actually motivated me. So that's the problem. So the reason why being reluctant is an issue is that if you're doing something reluctantly for a long period of time, you are depleting your energy. And so when you're depleting your energy each time, then ultimately you're depleting how you are as a person and how you are operating. and that's not good for you, and it's not good for your well-being and your mental health. Because at the time when I was running my retail business, I didn't really think about my mental health in the way that I do now, but I definitely had a period of time when I was just going through the motions and doing those things just because you have to do them is soul destroying. Now, I want to put, there are times when we do have to do that. And so I'm not saying that we should never be doing things just because we have to do them. The thing is, we've got to manage it to make sure that we're not doing them things that we have to do that we don't really want to do for a long period of time. So as soon as you can get somebody else to do things that you don't really want to do, then the idea is to find somebody else that wants to do it. And that's, again, somebody that motivated to do something is going to do it better than you. And also that frees up your time to do things that you are more motivated to do.
Okay, so you emphasize building a business that sets you free. How do you personally maintain balance and avoid burnout while growing a business?
So a business that sets you free, it gives you the freedom to do things you want to do.
Mhm.
So it's not that you can just do what you like every day, but it just means that you have more control over it. So, and you have other people doing things for you. You're not what I call the biggest cog in the machine. So if you're the biggest cog, that means when you stop turning, all the cogs around you, they stop turning with you. So, and that's the trap that a lot of people running businesses fall into. They become that biggest cog, and so when they slow down, everything slows down around them. So it prevents them going on holiday and all the other things that are good for our well-being and maintaining us as an individual. So the alternative scenario is to think of yourself when you're running a business as the oil that keeps the machine working. So you're oiling all the cogs and making sure they're all working well. And obviously, when one needs fixing, you make sure you fix that. That's your responsibility to keep all the cogs working well and lubricated so that the machine, which is your business, works well. And that should be your priority. That isn't probably your priority when you're starting a business, because but it's something to aspire to, because once you've done that, there's many benefits. One is that you have more control and you have more freedom to do the things you want to do in the way you want to do them. But also, if you are got the aspiration to sell your business in the future, it's going to be more valuable if you are not the biggest cog. Because if you're the biggest cog, then you have to be replaced. Whereas if you've created a business that runs without you, you don't need to be replaced. You're just the person that owns the business.
And what advice would you give to leaders struggling to stay motivated when the business or leadership role starts to feel overwhelming or misaligned with their personal values?
Well, understanding what it is that you really come to work for, what motivates you at work, and make sure those things are being fulfilled. So to do this, you've got to identify what it is that motivates you. So I use a tool called motivational maps.
Mhm.
And once you identify what's motivated you, what also the tool does, it gives you an indication as to how fulfilled each of the 9 motivations for work are currently. So the idea is to look at the top 3 motivators and make sure they're well fulfilled, because they're the things that are most important to you at this moment. And then make sure that the thing that you least are motivated by, and in my case, it's managing people, as I've mentioned, that you're not doing too much of that. So you're not spending too much time doing that, because ultimately that's depleting your energy. So the first thing you've got to do to maintain your motivation is to understand what it is you really get motivated by. And in most cases, it's not money, which can be a good and bad thing. Sometimes if we're not focused enough on the money, then we don't create enough turnover and money in the business because we're not going for the sale. So that can be a problem. But if we are overly focused on the money, then we could be missing opportunities with regards to growing the business and not just growing the business with regards to the turnover, but making sure that the business is actually fulfilling lots of other things that we need, as opposed to just a financial gain.
So you do help people to find the middle ground.
Yeah, it's one of the things I start with. So I'll tell you a couple of stories actually that might be
Mhm.
useful. So well, a few years ago now, somebody came to me and they said, "Look, I've heard what you talk about. I'm definitely not motivated in my business, and I can't quite understand why." So we did the motivational map exercise, which only takes about 10 minutes, and then we had a debrief session. And so in this instance, what we found is that this person was wanting to make a difference, was one of her top motivators. She felt that she was doing that.
Mhm.
But another of our top motivators was what we call the friend. So the friend is about working with people that you like and you'll feel connection to. So being friends with people that you work with. Now, which was just a bit of an anomaly because she was running her own business. So you think, well, can you run your own business and still and have friends in that business? Well, what she identified was that the problems she had with her business, which was doing pretty well from the outside, was that the clients that she was attracting were not people that she really particularly connected with. And so when you are working with people on a regular basis and you are friend driven, so you want connections at work as one of your top motivators, and that's not happening, that becomes a bit of a problem. And she was feeling it, but she couldn't quite put a finger on it. So a motivational map identified that. And so she then decided that she needed to do something about it because the clients were not her ideal. So she came up with a strategy to um, attract the right clients firstly, and also the clients that she was already working with, rather than just saying, "I don't want to work with you anymore." She put her prices up to a level where she didn't think that they would probably go with the price. So gradually they left anyway, and so she did that successfully. She got the clients that she wants, and now her business is growing. She's taken a far better view of what she really wants from a business, and most importantly, the type of clients that she wants to work with. Another story is someone who was considering closing their business
Mhm.
because, again, it wasn't really fulfilling them. And what we identified in this instance was that, firstly, that they were driven by freedom and autonomy. So
Mhm.
they wanted freedom, but they weren't getting much of it. And the reason why they weren't getting a lot of it was because their business was the type of business that was very competitive with other businesses. And so when they won work, it was low margin, and often they had to rely on subcontractors. And
Mhm.
when those subcontractors let down the business, then at the weekends, they had to sort of pick up the pieces, or he did. And so that was giving him no freedom because nothing seemed to go right, since it was becoming a business that was really coming a problem to him and giving him no time off at the weekends. So he changed his business by employing one of his top motivators. And one of his top motivators was what we call the expert. So he identified that he wanted a business or to do things that had deep knowledge. So rather than doing general work, which he was doing before, which was very competitive, he now does specialist work, which actually he's motivated by, and also it's more valuable, so he can charge more for it. He doesn't have to employ anybody else, so he doesn't have to have subcontractors now. And so his business has now grown to a point where he's thinking about employing more people. And from a business that he was thinking about closing down, it's now thriving. And that's the power of understanding what it is that you want for your business, and then making sure those things are being employed and fulfilled in your business, and that the businesses then take off from that point.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing those stories. I know running a business can be a big challenge.
Yeah, 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 it is.
Yeah. Okay. So how can leaders foster a workplace culture that prioritizes mental health, or mental well-being, especially when scaling a business?
Well, we should take a leaf out of OK Talk, and that it's about allowing people to talk. It's about allowing people to have a conversation. I don't think a lot of people are very good at that. People are. tend to be better at talking at you than listening to you in most cases. I think that one of the things that I do concentrate on particularly is to give people the time to speak and not interrupt them and let them say what they need to say. Because we are all tempted by, when someone stops talking, we fill in the blanks, don't we, or talk for people and all that. So I think that's the most important thing you can do if you want a workforce that's looking after its well-being. You've got to give them the opportunity to say when they're not happy, have a good forum for that. And I take a little bit of a leaf out of Simon Sinek, who's written some great books on leadership.
Mhm.
And one of the things he talks about is sort of leaders eating last. And really the concept is it's not just about eating, it's about actually speaking last as well. So when you're having a get together, maybe with a team, if you are leading a team, make sure that you are not the first person to speak, but the last person. When I say that you can introduce maybe what we're going to be talking about in the meeting, but if you set your agenda first and say what you think, that probably will stop other people saying what they need to say. So you need to encourage other people to speak, get their opinions, value them, and make sure that they're recognized for what they've said, because nobody wants to come to a meeting and be ignored. They want to be listened to. That is one of the things that we all need as human beings, isn't it? It's just to be listened to and also appreciated, isn't it? In our work, and we don't get enough of that. I've just replied, somebody put out a post on LinkedIn in the last hour or so, and I was reading it, and it said, what would be your recommendation for anybody leading a team to make sure that people are staying and not leaving?
Mhm.
And I put on there simply catch people doing things right. Because again, we don't do enough of that. We're good at noticing when things are wrong. As human beings, we do it all the time, don't we? But we're not very good at actually pointing out when something's right. So if you're going to be a good leader, be the person that notices always when things are right, because that's what keeps people, well, when people know that you're noticing, then you'll get more of that behavior if you notice and you feedback that you notice something's good. And just being the person that picks up when things are wrong, ultimately it's not going to serve you, and you're not going to be a very good leader, and people are going to eventually just switch off from what you say because it gets a bit demoralizing. So that
Yeah.
would be my top tip. If you want a well-being within your organization, you've got to allow people to speak. And if it's not, you've got to create the right environment. And if people need to have a one-to-one, then allow them to have that one-to-one. But if people need to be brought together, bring them together and allow people to talk.
Yeah, so it's really just paying attention what they need and creating that open space for conversation.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So how should businesses support leaders who might be struggling with their roles from a mental health perspective?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of people that are thrown into managing a team are often unprepared. So one of the tips I would say is to get on board with maybe a mentoring group, not necessarily within your organization, just connect with other managers that are doing maybe a similar role to you in a different organization, and just connect with them. Because once you can learn from one another, you can also support one another, and you can understand what the other person is going through, and you're bound to find someone that's been through what you're going through. And also, it's a trouble shared is a trouble sort of halved, isn't it? And if you can get those people, a group of people that are in a similar situation to you, like not necessarily in a mastermind setup, but just you get together and talk about, what are your challenges? No agenda in particular. So you just come together and support one another. And I think that's the one thing that I see a lot, is that people feel that they're a bit isolated. It's
Mm.
particularly when they're managing a team, in that they haven't really been shown the right way to go about leading a team. And so ultimately they start to fail. And the saddest thing is that, a good employee that's been promoted to a manager can leave the organization eventually because there's got no support, and bizarrely, they're expected to do something that they've never been shown how to do. And so that's that reluctant leader sort of accidental manager scenario where when you're promoted to lead a team and you've not been shown the right way to do it or never been on a course to do it, then ultimately you're being set up to fail. And that's the saddest thing. And I've seen that happen a number of times, even with my clients, that I've warned them to, okay, you can promote that person, but you need to look after them and make sure they feel that they belong, and make sure that they're trained to do the new job. Because, doing a technical job is one thing, but then managing a team of technical experts, it's a completely different thing. And so why do we expect people to be able to do it just by giving them the job without any training? We wouldn't do that. It's like something like if you had a forklift truck that you needed to use in your warehouse, you wouldn't just throw the keys to the first person you find, and say, "They have a go with driving the forklift." Fingers crossed nothing nasty happens. And it's just like that, because that's what you're doing. You're giving the keys to the team, and then fingers crossed everything will be okay. And so, why do that? It's just madness. And so one of my passions is to make sure that people are trained in the right way to lead people. And that's it's not a science, actually. When you break it down, there are only three things you need to actually lead a team well. You need to have the right mindset, and the mindset being high challenge, high support. That's what I believe is the right way to do things. Then you need to know a process to follow, and the process needs to start with a clear vision as to what you're trying to achieve. And lastly, you need to know the skills to use at the right time. So a lot of people in leadership and management, they use the same skills all the time, and they don't adapt to different situations, and that's where they come unstuck. So we need to be situationally consistent by using the right skills at the right time. So essentially, you need to know the mindset, the process, and the skills to be effective.
Okay, so I'm interested in your personal journey. So, what daily or weekly habits have you developed to stay grounded and maintain your well-being, both as individual and as a leader?
Well, not surprisingly, I'm aware of my motivations, so I make sure those are being fulfilled as much as possible. But also being aware that my lowest motivator is something that I need to engage now and again and use. And so I might not want to particularly manage people for a long period of time, but sometimes I need to step up and take responsibility for others. So I need to be aware of that. I'm also quite a big advocate of, in my book, I talk about a 7-step process, which is mainly about how to, yes, like I say, set yourself free with regards to your business. And that's what I call the 7-step measure program. But there's 2 other chapters in my book to make 9 chapters. And those 2 chapters are probably the most important. Is that firstly, you've got to make sure you're looking after yourself. So it's like when we got on every aircraft, we're told to fit our own mask before everybody else's. So that's what we should be doing, is making sure that we're looking after our mental health, looking after our physical health, emotional health, and also our spiritual health, and making sure we're in a good place. So looking after yourself is important. And secondly, the other chapter, which is outside the sort of measure program, is enjoying the journey. So I know you'd resonate with, the ups and downs of trying to run a business. Sometimes things look like they're just going just really well, and then all of a sudden something happens, and the wheels come off a little bit, and then you've got to sort of recover and start again. So you've got to be able to be resilient and accept those things just happen as just part of the journey. Learn from them and move on and try and prevent them from happening again. So that would be my tips with regards to, or what basically my routine is, to look after those things, make sure I'm, emotionally in a good place, physically, mentally and spiritually in a good place, looking after my well-being, eating well, sleeping well, and reaching out for help when I need it. And I mean, I don't go to Chatty Cafe for help, but I go there because it makes me feel good. It's a nice environment just to open up, just chat about whatever you want to talk about. Turns out we spend a lot of time talking about boats and dogs, but you know, that's fine.
So, was there a moment in your leadership journey when well-being became a priority for you? When what sparked that realization?
Definitely. So I did not pay enough attention to that side of me when I was running my retail business. I just went through the motions. And so I think when that's happened to you, then you first of all, you're more conscious of, you know, particularly when I'm working with clients, make sure that doesn't happen to them.
Mm.
And it's making sure you have strategies. And when you notice it starting to become maybe a problem, is to realize that actually you need to do something different. And when um, when you're at your, you know, your lowest energy, coming back to the energy thing, you're never going to be performing at your best.
Mm.
And so looking after yourself and being in the best place you can be, most important, I think.
Mm.
It is because there's only one of you, isn't there? And
Yeah.
if you're not in the best place, and if you're not looking after yourself, then it's not a good place to start, is it?
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything you would like to share with audience?
Well, no, I just think that if you are thinking about starting a business, then obviously I've written a little bit about my journey in my book as to things that went well, things that didn't go so well. So think about really what it is that you want to get from your business. And if it's not a business or a career that you want to actually develop, then think about the things that you need to enjoy the journey, as we've mentioned, allowing yourself to be in charge of your career. So rather than just waiting for the, you know, the promotion that you might be in for in the future, actually create it. Be ready for that promotion. So if you see yourself going down a management career, then be prepared and start reading lots of books on leadership and being prepared to get into that mindset of looking after others, because that's essentially what you've got to do when you get into a management position. Is you should be thinking more about others than yourself. That's not to say, as we've already mentioned, that you know, disregard yourself, but it's about how you can develop your team, how you can get the best from them, and when they're performing at your best, that takes the pressure off you and not the other way around. So that would be my golden sort of nugget with regards to having a successful business or career, is that be prepared for the next step, and think about what that is, and don't ever underestimate business. You've got to get your head around how to sell and to market your business. And they're the two keys that will probably be the difference between being successful and not being successful.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just wondering if someone would ask you or share with you that they struggle with their motivation and they're running or they started running the business, what would be, the first thing you would suggest?
Yeah, well, when they say things like that, I say, well, you know, what are the symptoms? And you know, sometimes it's, oh, I just I get trouble getting out of bed in the mornings and all that sort of stuff. I'm just not really energized in my business anymore. So, and that's where we need to understand what it is that's really not being fulfilled. So, going back to those two stories, understand what it is that really does motivate you at work and make sure you're doing as much of that as possible. And also avoid the mistake that I made, was that I was spending most of my time managing people when it was the thing I least was motivated by. So that would be the key for me.
So finding what motivates you.
Definitely understand that, because I think when people um, start a business, it might be for a certain reason. It might be that they want to, you know, escape the boss that's getting on their nerves, or they just think, well, I can do this better than my current business is doing it. So I've got an idea, I'm going to do it better. So most people do set up a business using the skills that they've already learned. But as time goes by, those skills probably won't be enough. So you've got to keep your skills up to date, learn new skills, and most of those skills that are really going to serve you will be the people skills, not the technical skills. As you grow your business, the more skilled you are at leading people and getting the most out of other people. Again, I think that again is a crucial difference between success and failure. Yeah, and you've got to know where you're going and what you're actually trying to achieve, because we don't want to set up a business just to replace a job. There should be something else other than that. So if you can get other people to do things for you, that's when it becomes a business as such, because you're then managing those cogs as opposed to being that big cog in the middle.
Yeah, all right, brilliant. So thank you very much, Mark. If there's anything else you would like to mention before we end, please do.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Marina. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We've been trying to find time to do it. So thank you for the opportunity. If anybody has anything that I said resonates, then look up my book. My book you can get from Amazon. It's available in Kindle or in book formats. Or if you want to reach out to me, find me on LinkedIn and just say that you'd like a copy of my book, and I'll be more than happy to send you a copy. If you know, I wish you every success, whichever direction you're heading. Be aware of the things that are important to you, and that's where motivation is important, because it's not all about the way you do things. It's often why you do things that makes the difference.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.